Good morning, Your Excellencies, President Hashmi, and distinguished guests. On behalf of the Middle East Institute, I welcome you and your colleagues to our home in D.C. The Middle East Institute was founded in 1946, and since that time, we've included Pakistan in our programming as part of the Greater Middle East region. The Pakistan Center at MEI was founded in 2009 and dedicated solely to the study of Pakistan. During today's program, we will hear from geopolitical experts who not only understand Pakistan's history, but also how the country is evolving in foreign policy, economic diplomacy, and strategic relations with the United States, the Gulf states, and its regional neighbors. Part of MEI's mission is to foster dialogue with the hope of building fruitful relationships at a time when productive discourse is most necessary. We will cover the key topics in navigating the new administration at this inflection point and how to build strong relationships for all of the Middle East states, kingdoms, and countries. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Now I'd like to introduce our colleague, Mr. Ganzenfar Hashmi, who has collaborated with the Middle East Institute and provided this opportunity to host the third annual Pakistan Conference. He is instrumental in putting together the topics, panelists, and guest speakers for today's conference. Mr. Hashmi, a PhD in public policy, is president and CEO for the International Academy of Letters, USA, a think tank with the aim to build bridges and promote public and cultural diplomacy through dialogue on culture, arts, diplomacy, current affairs, and literature. He is a recognized and well-known writer, broadcast journalist, public diplomacy expert, poet, researcher, translator, analyst, and author of 5 books. I'm feeling pretty small standing up here right now. His latest published book, A Nation Imprisoned in Myths, has been well received by academic circles and is considered an important contribution to the intellectual discourse on American exceptionalism. Mr. Hashmi hosts a current affairs talk show called Dialogue on the ARI Digital Network. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Hashmi as he makes his way to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Sexton. Excellency Rizwan Saeed Sheikh, Pakistan's ambassador to the United States of America, Dr. Susan Sexton, CEO, Middle East Institute, Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, Director, Pakistan and Afghanistan Affairs, Middle East Institute, the members of high-level parliamentary delegation visiting from Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the International Academy of Letters, USA, I would like to welcome you all to this third annual Pakistan Conference, which has now become an annual feature of Washington, D.C., and an iconic event of our organization. This conference is being organized in collaboration with Middle East Institute, and for this I am thankful to Dr. Marvin Weinbaum for this partnership and support. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference is being held at a very critical time. On one hand, Pakistan has entered a new phase of its relationship with the Trump administration, and on the other hand, we are going through a post-war and post-ceasefire uncertain situation. A high-level Pakistani parliamentary delegation is currently visiting the USA, and fortunately, they are part of today's conference. We have dedicated the first and closing keynote sessions to the discussion on the Pakistan-India crisis and understanding of Pakistan's viewpoint on conflict. For more than 2 decades, Pakistan-USA relations have only been understood through the lens of Afghan war and seen as a security-centric and transactional. But now, international political dynamics have changed. Great power politics in the region has pushed main players like Pakistan to leverage its position, a unique position of geostrategic position with balancing its relationship with all great powers simultaneously. It is a time to see these relations through the lens of new priorities to be set by the short and long-term interests of both countries. Public diplomacy is a soft power that can influence international affairs and establish an enduring partnerships that does not depend on transactional exchanges. By facilitating dialogue and cultivating relationship between citizens of both nations, public diplomacy assures linkages between the United States and Pakistan that can persist even when government to government level relations are not good. There is a need to engage lawmakers, media, influential groups, think tanks, and cultural organizations through public and cultural diplomacy tools and create an environment that can help achieve the foreign policy goals of both countries. International Academy of Letters USA is a non-profit, non-political, and non-partisan think tank organization working to build bridges among the nations and communities through dialogue on diplomacy, art, literature, politics, and culture. It organizes conferences, forums, festivals, and seminars, and is actively engaged in strengthening Pakistan-USA relations through people-to-people contacts. The main objective of this conference is to understand Pakistan's viewpoint on the recent Pakistan-India war and explore the opportunities for strengthening security, economic, and trade relations between Pakistan and USA by engaging diplomats, businessmen, investors, experts, and scholars. I am grateful to my friend Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, Director of Pakistan and Afghanistan Affairs, Middle East Institute, who has provided us with this opportunity for partnership in organizing this conference. I am also thankful to our keynote speakers, Excellency Rizwan Saeed Sheikh, Pakistan Ambassador to the United States, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto, former Minister for Foreign Affairs of Pakistan and head of the visiting delegation from Pakistan, members of the Pakistani delegation, and all honorable panelists today for accepting our invitation and gracing this occasion with their presence. I take this opportunity to say thank you to my friends Tahir Javed, Hasnain Aslam, Umar Bajwa, Umar Khwaja, and my Maryland friends for their cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure that this conference will help identify the ways for broader cooperation between the two countries and make the world better understand Pakistan's viewpoint on the Pakistan-India conflict and post-ceasefire situation. Thank you very much. Now I request Mr. Excellency Rizwan Saeed Sheikh, Pakistan's Ambassador to the United States, for his opening remarks.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. A very good morning to all. Thank you, Dr. Sexton, Marvin Weinbaum, and Mr. Hashmi for this joint effort of Pakistan Academy of Letters as well as the Middle East Institute for organizing this important event. As you have mentioned, that it is third in the series, so it is really taking roots as a regular feature on the calendar of events here in the United States. As the ambassador of Pakistan, since we are going to have a lot of discussion with regard to the different aspects of US-Pakistan relationship under the new Trump administration, I would try to preface that discussion with a few important points. The first one being that Pakistan, as you know, is a mega country. We are 250 million people, with a population growth rate of 2.55%. We are not particularly fond of it, by the way, but still that's the growth rate that we have. And based on that growth rate, we are going to beat Indonesia around 2030 and will not only be the fourth most densely populated country in the world, but the largest Muslim nation state. And that has its own bearings and a whole set of important perspectives that this kind of stature as a mega country would bring. And as I've said, that population growth rate is a credible statistic with us. But in that vein, we will actually beat United States and be number 3 in terms of population around 2 decades from now. So that is saying something. So in 2 decades from now, and imagine that if the last 2 decades in your life seem to have gone in a jiffy, in a snap, we are looking at another 2 decades. So Pakistan and United States would be number 3 and 4 in terms of being the most densely populated countries in the world. We do not, by any stretch of our imagination, intend to compete India or China on population at least. But certainly, the United States and Pakistan, as 2 mega countries, need to have a relationship that stands on its own. And that is the point that I want to make. Pakistan has been looked at over the 78-year-long partnership that we have with the United States, because it was established on day one of our independent existence when President Truman wrote a letter to the founder of our nation, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. For the past 78 years, and Mr. Hashmi alluded to it, the relationship has been unfolding in a security idiom largely. But Pakistan has a lot more to it. As the new emerging middle power, as a nation that only reinvigorated, re-established itself as a confident player in the regional as well as global context just a month back, and of course there will be more light shed on it, we merit our own lens. We should not be looked at from the Chinese, Indian, Afghan, Russian, or any other lens. A nation of 250 million people merits its own strategic space. Our geography lends us, and it has already been alluded to by Mr. Hashmi, a geostrategic significance, a geopolitical significance. But consciously, over the past 3-4 years, Pakistan has changed, altered, in a deliberate, thought-through action, the focus, the thrust of its foreign policy orientation from geopolitics to geoeconomics. The same geography that lends us the geopolitical significance also lends us a geoeconomic importance. And that is what we intend to encash going forward. And Pakistan was in the middle of an economically ascendant reform and restructuring process in the World Bank and IMF week. And I was part of all meetings there, and there was a chorus of commendation on Pakistan's performance on the economic front. And then that incident happened, of course. Details I leave for the panelists to discuss. But the point that I want to make and leave you with it, Pakistan is a mega country. Pakistan and United States, being 2 mega countries from a futuristic standpoint, need relations of their own, standalone. And the Trumpian administration, since it has been in power from the 20th of January this year, is moving in that direction. Pakistan, as we recall, was the only country during the congressional address of the president that, he named half a dozen countries and warned them on tariffs, etc. But Pakistan was the only country that was named and thanked for its cooperation in the counterterrorism domain. And we are the biggest country in the world that has lost lives, 90,000 plus, has incurred losses, hundreds of billions of dollars in fight against terrorism, in global combat against terrorism. And in the history of 78 years, each time Pakistan and United States have come together, it has been consequential beyond the bilateral domain. It has been consequential for the broader world. And that's something perhaps I would want the panelists and other speakers today to look into, to probe into, and suggest a way forward to the administration, to us as the practitioners of foreign policy from Pakistan. I hope that you will have a good, successful, concrete, consequential deliberations. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Ambassador Ridwan Saeed Sheikh. So we go straight to our first session, and the moderator of the first session is Mr. Michael Kugelman. He is the expert on South Asian affairs and is the columnist in Foreign Policy magazine. I request him to come on the stage. So our first session's panelists are, I request Hina Rabbani Khair, former Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Dr. Musaddiq Malik, Federal Minister, please come on the stage. Senator Shari Rahman Sahiba, former Pakistan's ambassador to the United States, and Ms. Tahmina Janjua, former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have three sessions today. First is the keynote session, and the second session is opportunities and obstacles to strengthening the U.S.-Pakistan economic and political relations with the Trump administration. So, this is the third session, sorry. And the second session is on economic security cooperation. And the third one I just told. And we have a closing session which will be addressed by Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, former Foreign Minister of Pakistan and Chairman of Pakistan People's Party. And that would be at 12. And we will be having lunch at 12:30. So this is the whole conference agenda. I would be sitting as your helper and
co-moderator. Thank you very much, Ghazenfar. I trust everyone can hear me. Great, excellent. Well, I want to thank Ghazenfar and also the Middle East Institute for inviting me to be here. My name is not Marvin Weinbaum. He was envisioned to serve in this role, but he couldn't make it. But I'm happy to step in and moderate. And also, it's great to be reunited with Ghazenfar. We have collaborated on several conferences on U.S.-Pakistan relations in the past. So we have a very distinguished group of speakers with us. They were just introduced. As you know, they are here with the visiting delegation from Pakistan. So it's great that they could join us. The format for this session will be for me to pose a few questions to the delegates. And I'll start with a few questions about themselves and their delegation and why they're here. And then I'd like to move into a bit of discussion about the U.S.-Pakistan relationship, which is the focus of the broader topic of our discussion. And then we'll look to have some Q&A. I believe there'll be note cards that you'll be able to write your questions, and then they can come up to us. So first question, and this is for anyone that would like to respond. I think we could keep this very, very informal. It's a very simple and a very fundamental question. So the conflict with India ended nearly a month ago. A ceasefire is in place, a fragile ceasefire, but a ceasefire is in place. There are very pressing issues at home to tend to, and yet your government has put together this very distinguished group of former ministers, ambassadors, and diplomats to travel here and four other key global capitals to make Pakistan's case on the issues that figured into conflict last month. So clearly the government in Pakistan takes this delegation very seriously and has invested heavily in its success. So the question is, what is the purpose of putting this delegation together at this moment? And building on that, what's the objective and how will success be measured?
I can take it, sir.
Please.
I think, first of all, thank you very much. I thank the Institute, I thank you, and I see a lot of friends here, so thank you all for coming. I think we are here because this is not just the issue between India and Pakistan. It's a much larger issue that brings into question the stability of the region and perhaps the stability of the world. And that's why, in spite of very pressing needs at home, we thought it would be very important to come here and talk directly about it. There are three major things happening which the world needs to hear. The first is this new doctrine of defensive, offensive, preemptive strike, etc. This is a very bizarre and very dangerous doctrine. This is a doctrine in which you can attack a country without any proof, any provocation, or any reason. Here, if you suspect that the country is going to attack you in the future, not right now, you should be able to attack that country. There's also another premise, that if something happens within a particular country because of the oppressive instruments that they're using on their own people, and there's a response, and you suspect that some other country is behind it, that gives you the right to wage a war. So when Canada suspected that India was behind some of the assassination attempts or assassinations in Canada, did Canada have the right to attack India? When Pakistan's train and schools get caught and children are burnt alive and their teachers are burnt alive with phosphorus, does this give Pakistan the right to attack India? Even in the United States, when there are suspicions that some Indian forces were behind some illegitimate or not so legitimate actions, does it give the right to the United States to strike India? This is a very dangerous doctrine, and it's not limited to Pakistan. We've seen it in the Middle East. We've seen it in Canada, and we're now seeing it in Pakistan. So we would like to make these connections to bring to the fore a new doctrine. I would like to request and ask, is this a fair way for the world to move forward? Do you want this world to be a wild west world where the fastest gun prevails? Do you want this to be a dog-eat-dog kind of world? And if not, then some principled position has to be taken. And Pakistan is but one example. The second thing that I would like to bring to the fore is that in the garb of this military engagement, hitting 6-year-old children, 6-year-old girls that we buried, is that a military engagement? If you fly missiles across the border to hit basically civilian homes, and you cannot identify one terrorist, the world has been asking, where is that terrorist that you hit? But rather than attacking the terrorists, you're attacking mosques and synagogues and churches. You're burying schools and hospitals. And you're letting the world dig out dead bodies under the rubble of those schools and hospitals. So this entire human shield doctrine, of which Pakistan is just but one example, we're bringing to the fore for the world to see where we're heading. The third thing that we're bringing to the fore, and this would be my last point, is that this violation, unilateral violation of treaties, what does that mean? There's no provision in our water treaty with India. But if India says we have a right, because we're upper riparian, to choke you of your water, the only water supply, may I tell you, the only water supply, choke you of your water supplies, then what are treaties worth? All of these treaties that came about, the war treaties, the peace treaties, the international developmental treaties that we're all signatories to, they're not worth the piece of paper on which they are written. If any country can unilaterally withdraw from this new world order. So I submit to you, that's why we're here. Not just about us. We are here about us as well. But we are here for you to imagine a world which is ruleless, which is without any agreements, which is only based upon realpolitik of power. We have walked this journey before. We had the First World War, we had the Second World War, based upon assumptions, based upon suspicions, based upon violations, and based upon no order. So I submit to you, is this the world that we'd like to cook? We come here in peace. I ask the counter delegations, what are they here for? We ask for dialogue. What are they asking for? And if we say peace and they don't say peace, and if we say dialogue and they don't say dialogue, then we'd like to come to the world to say, hey, guys, you're walking on thin ice. And when it implodes, it's not just going to be India and Pakistan. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ambassador Manfil.
So I think Minister Malik sums it up very eloquently, but I just want to make a few points on why we're here and what's going on. Actually, the state of play is what matters today to us for more than one reason. And one of them is, as rightly observed, India is trying to reset a strategic new abnormal in the region. I call it an abnormal because it certainly is nowhere close to a normal or anywhere close to what even a regional hegemon does in its behavior. Now, what is it's trying to be a regional hegemon that belongs to the 19th century, where you impose order through permanent war. And it is trying to impose order through permanent conflict or war, not by maintaining or securing the region through peace. That is usually how regions are secured, even by global hegemons or regional hegemons. So my submission is that, it's not behaving. This is an oxymoron. You can't preserve order in a region or stability or ensure security in the Asia or Indo-Pacific, which it is seeking to do, without being some sort of provider of peace. And Chairman Bilal has been saying this everywhere, that peace is the only net security provider which will ensure stability. And stability is crucial. Stability is crucial because we are the obvious, the two nuclear countries. But what is dangerous is, in this new abnormal, that there are no rules, as stated here, absolutely no rules. And there are no conversations, structured dialogues, risk reduction regimes, or any kind of protocols that lead to some kind of maintenance of crisis order. There's not even crisis communication. Since 2019, there has been no civilian or even limited military communication between two nuclear countries who have repeatedly gone to war. And as you know, this time, the threshold for nuclear conflict became closer and closer. It was lower. The 87-hour war escalated too fast for anyone's comfort. Now, the point here is that while water is being weaponized in a dangerous new precedent, and we should talk about that, I think, more substantively, the issue here is that what will go on in South Asia will not stay in South Asia. The world needs to worry about what's going on here, because this is not a crisis that can be contained. Conflict that is stoked as perpetual, as opposed to what we are seeking. Now, what we are seeking is sustainable peace. And sustainable peace is only through structured, composite, or whatever dialogue however you want to structure it, but it has to be sustainable. It can't just be cut off, cut on. And that's how mature, responsible, strategic states behave, nuclear states behave. India's new abnormal is based on weaponizing water. We've discussed that, and we should more substantively, but it's also based on not only on a perpetual war construct, but on weaponizing words. In today's digital world, you cannot create an environment for stability, let alone peace, if you are constantly weaponizing words and shrinking the space for a stable, rational conversation. Which, lastly, Narendra Modi has recently said, Pakistani's youth should either eat bread or they're going to face my bullet. Now, this is statecraft, not even from the 19th century, but it isn't fully aligned with the way they're keeping the ceasefire increasingly fragile, but they are also messaging that we are keeping this ceasefire increasingly fragile, that we are going to keep the region on the boil. So Pakistan is not, we are not the commitment phobes to building any kind of a rational framework for going forward. I mean, the world is in polycrisis. At least South Asia is. Climate, water, food. All of these insecurities are raging higher than India than in Pakistan, just because they have more of everything. And so right now, instead of building a space for conversations, what they're doing actively, which is to shrink that space. And Rajnath Singh, Defense Minister of India, caps it off very regularly by pithy statements. And he says, well, you've seen the trailer. This war, this escalated 87-hour war was a trailer where Pakistan responded it's another story how we responded in multi-domain warfare. It was just a trailer. There's going to be a film. This is a Bollywood film that was running. So when I say words were weaponized, they shrunk the narrative actively for peace, aligned with their media. Mainstream channels had Delhi now already made Lahore, not just by pollution or smog, the two are Lahore and Delhi are the two most polluted cities in the world. Instead of talking about it or taking joint action, no, this is what they're talking about, that Karachi port is already over. The map of Pakistan had been erased on mainstream channels. I'm not talking of fringe outlets, which again then limited the space for people who talk on track 2, track 1.5 to speak to us credibly. They became more xenophobic than anyone else. And what we're seeing now, once the fog of war settled, you're seeing the Prime Minister of India, unfortunately, locking himself and his cabinet into a commitment trap. That commitment trap is that he promised much more. There was almost Pakistan's annihilation promised during the war. This is dangerous. Pakistan only responded with measured proportionality, responded only on military targets, only when provoked, and only after days of a serious bombing, as Minister Malik said, on civilian targets, which is against all rules. But I mean, this is not an India that complies by rules. It is glamorizing war constantly, and it is taking all conflict in a world that is now, look, we are already in a world where there are more conflicts than any since the Second World War. But for two nuclear countries with no buffer and any chance of a misadventure occurring at any point, you'll have 20 million people impacted immediately. And within days, there'll be a nuclear winter that nobody has seen before. This is a crowded region. This is a region that will not be able to contain, because Pakistan will have to respond. We have, by Article 51, the right to respond according to the UN Charter. We believe in laws. We want to be governed by laws, but we would like our belligerent, identity politics-driven neighbor to do the same. The two countries have changed, and I know you're going to come up with, I'm going to wind up now, but there's always a conversation that India has about terror. I'm going to bring up the T word. We will bring up the K word also, which is Kashmir. But the point here is, well, that's important to us. That's the core dispute that is roiling, that is unsettled between the countries. And it's got to be addressed. It's got to be multilaterally addressed. But India doesn't want multilateralism. It sneers at bilateralism while saying it wants to do so. And it's also at no point willing to acknowledge that it needs to grow up and have a third-party mediator in the room. And that's what the United States did. So we thank the United States and the President and the Secretary of State for intervening at this level of escalating crisis. So I think this is where we stand today. It's a high-risk threshold, which is being kept completely on the boil. And you cannot assume the ceasefire is automatically leading to stability or peace. It's not. So I have lots more to say, but I think there's people.
Quick announcement for the audience.
Very quick, because when we're speaking,
I will allow, we can have some question, but that to clean a written form where you can write down the questions on the index card you have on the chairs, and Mani will collect from you, and we can read out on your behalf for the parents.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I know that Ms. Carr needs to leave early, so I wanted to ask you the next question. And sorry, it's a bit of a tricky question, but I think it's an important one. We know that there's an Indian delegation here. Mm-hmm. Perhaps you've run into them, maybe you'll run into them. And one could argue that there's a bit of a battle of narratives playing out in DC this week. What makes you think that Pakistan can be more convincing than India, particularly given the nature of the U.S.-India relationship, Washington's deepening ties in New Delhi in recent years?
Sure. Okay, that's a good question. And my answer is absolutely not. There's no battle of narratives at all. And it's, sometimes you do really simple stuff to send really important messages. So I found it really interesting that both of us kind of happened to be, the Indian delegation and the Pakistani delegation, almost happened to be in New York at the same time. And we spent 2 days, almost 10 hours a day or more, in the United Nations headquarters, meeting the Secretary General, meeting the E10, meeting the Security Council members, meeting pretty much everyone we could find within the parameters of the UN headquarters, because we don't have a narrative, we have a reality to share with the world. I think, and we saw our colleagues, I can call them colleagues because they're also parliamentarians, from India spending their entire time selling the narrative to their own people through their own consulate. Okay? And I think this, more than anything else, tells you as to how differently the countries are placed today. Because what India's, let's start with, that was to directly ask your question. What is India's ask and what is Pakistan's ask? I will put India's ask in one word, and that is impunity from international law, from rules-based order. It is saying that it is big enough, large enough, important enough, needed enough within the Western Hemisphere as a net security provider, whatever nomenclature you want to use, to receive complete impunity from all forms of international law and the UN Charter. Started off with, Article 25. Every country has to, is obliged to go by the Security Council resolutions. In 2019, India decided we are going to re-annex Kashmir, and nobody dare now say that Kashmir is not an integral part of India. And it doesn't matter what, the reality is. So I remember at that time on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference, I said, in 2019, I said, the world needs to wake up, India is becoming a rogue state. And it's really very, very, it makes you very unhappy when something that you say turns out to be so true. So moving back, I think what India is asking of the world is, let me frame it in three different ways. First of all, here's a country which says pretty much what they're asking of Pakistan is that Pakistan should become the next security guarantor of India. So if they make political mistakes in Kashmir, or if they make, security lapses inside India, anywhere else, everything that happens in India will fall on Pakistan's door. And then India, one nuclear state, has the right and wants the world to, give them the ability to do that and to codify that and to normalize that, to launch strikes into another nuclear state and come what may, the escalation ladder, as it will, goes where it does, right? Now, in this particular situation, you saw that they said, we don't need to provide evidence, not only to Pakistan, to anyone, not to the United States of America, not to France, not to the United Nations. We do not need to provide evidence. What is that? Impunity. Then they say, oh, we will never give Pakistan the pleasure of a dialogue, as if it's a pleasure that Pakistan is seeking. It's our quest for peace and security that makes us go back to dialogue, negotiation, because we do have unattended issues between the two countries, the root causes which are being referred to. And then it says also that we do not also want multilateral solution. Then it also says we don't want third countries to intervene. And then it also says when President Trump says, I intervened, I got the ceasefire done, he's lying. When Marco Rubio says, oh, there will be more negotiation, there will be dialogue, he's lying. So who's telling us the truth? Only Prime Minister Modi and his coterie of people. And also, Michael, I do want to say that I think what was very sad is what we witnessed in those 4 or 5 days. But it wasn't only the implosion of India's, myth of their conventional supremacy over Pakistan. It was also an implosion for Indian society that we saw in real life, which Pakistan had been experiencing, but it was really there for everyone to witness. And it doesn't make us any happy. It makes us very, very sad because we share a long border, people. So it's really, I don't think there's any, wanting to compete with India on the narrative that they're trying to sell, because we're not selling a narrative. We're selling we're trying to bring the world's attention to a real concern of a real nuclear flashpoint on real issues which need to be attended. And are we now agreeing that the only way to attend to those issues is through military means, and that negotiation and dialogue must not be a gift to be given? So it's a terrible, terrible framing that we see from our neighbor. And in our quest for peace and normalcy, and for the sake of our people and their prosperity, for 1.7 billion people, I think it is imperative, and that is why we are very proud of the mission, as Chairman Bhutto keeps on saying, that this particular delegation has been given by Pakistan, by the Pakistani people, Pakistan's Prime Minister. It's literally a mission to be able to extract peace out of the ocean of militarism. And that's about it. So I think, both delegations are here, but both delegations are here with a very, very different message.
Very true. Thank you. So as Gazenfar said, if he has questions, there should be no cards. Put them down. We'll start getting to them. I'm just going to ask one more question. Maybe you'd want to ask a question as well. And this gets more into the geopolitical situation, allows us to transition into the main topic of our discussion today. So Islamabad has long said, and perhaps I could direct this to you, because Islamabad has long said that it wants to have good relations with both China and the U.S. It does not want to be grouped into the China camp. But in Washington here, many are skeptical of that view and believe that Pakistan is already in the China camp. And the recent conflict with India, which featured Pakistan using Chinese-made jets against India, will likely strengthen that skepticism. So how do you respond to this skepticism, especially against the backdrop of the Trump administration's intensification of strategic competition, particularly in terms of geoeconomics with China?
Well, thank you very much. That's a question that everyone raises. It has been raising since
I'm sure
this recent conflict. But the reality is that, yes, we used Chinese equipment because that was the one that was available to us, and we had the opportunity to sort of try it out as well. And so it's not, Pakistan has said clearly that it's neither in one camp or the other. Pakistan wants to remain as equally understanding of each other's position. And therefore, it is perhaps a little unfair to say that Pakistan is in the China camp or the US camp. What came out of the current situation that happened was that the United States did come forward. So while we used Chinese equipment because that was available, we had the United States that came forward for looking at peace, at the possibilities of peace, and therefore proposed a ceasefire. And we're grateful to President Trump that he went ahead and did it. The reality is that Pakistan stood back for 2 days and did not respond to the initial attack by India on Pakistan. Pakistan waited for some kind of international support to Pakistan to sort of move to see whether the conflict would be. So basically, it meant that we were for peace and not for war. And this is unfortunately, in spite that there was one night when Indians went all out to go and attack our most important bases, etc. So what do? You obviously maximize your relationship with China and maximize your relationship with the United States. And at this time, we realized how important that President Trump had come out and made a very clear position, which India now denies that it was not President Trump who helped out with the ceasefire. Yes, there were other friends of Pakistan that also did it, but I think it's wrong to put Pakistan in one sort of category or the other. As for the question that you earlier asked as to why the delegation was here, and I'll make a very quick response with it, for peace, to look for dialogue, and to ensure that the ceasefire continues. Because what has happened is that the Indian leadership and its military, its defense minister and everyone has said, this is just a pause. And we want to avert the possibility of the pause. We want to have a solidification of the ceasefire. And of course, the most important thing that we're worried about is in this water treaty and the decision for India to put it in abeyance, which is absolutely unilateral and has no basis in law.
May I add just a little bit? So I would like to understand what this China camp is, because I don't understand. The biggest asset that Pakistan right now has are critical metals and minerals. That's the biggest asset that we have. And the largest investment that we have in Pakistan in mining critical metals is North American. So where is this China camp coming in when the largest investment in terms of the critical value chain in electrification revolution, in lithium batteries, in copper infrastructure, the largest investment coming forth is the North American. The financial closure of that is coming through the US Exim Bank. When all of these things are happening, where's the China camp? And is S-400 purchase of S-400 equipment, as opposed to the Chinese aircrafts that we have, Does that put India in the Russian camp? Was this Russia and China or Pakistan and India? So all of the drones that came our way were Israeli. So was this an Israeli camp? All of the air defense of India was coming from Russia. So is that the Russian camp? And all of the aircrafts of India were coming from France. So is this a European camp? We have been historically desirous of purchasing the US equipment, and we still are. You know that our air defense was for the longest time predicated and is predicated on F-16s and their further kind of newer versions. But if we don't get any equipment, you've seen what would have happened to us if we didn't have air defense. We would have been rubbles. We'd be pulling out 60,000 kids from the rubble of schools. And when 80 planes come at you, 80 in a few hundred miles, when 80 planes come at you, all of them having 5 missiles each, you multiply 80 with 5 missiles, and you know what India was coming at. Were they coming to hit one residential area with 80 planes and 400 missiles, some of which were dual carriers of atomic kind of warheads? So you saw what they were coming at. You saw what they came with. And you saw the technologies that they deployed from various countries. So I would say, bring it on, man. Give us those technologies. We'd buy them from you. So this is not, economically, the biggest investment is North American. The desire is to diversify our arsenal, our defense system from the world's best, including the United States. So this kind of camp thing has to be grounded in some kind of evidence. And I don't see that evidence with clarity.
So I have a brief question, and I want brief answer because we have very short time left. So my question is that what are the workable suggestions your delegation has brought here to ensure de-escalation and peace and stability in the region?
So if I may just quickly take that, I don't think that there's any rocket scientist or any reinvention of the wheel here. These are policy elites practiced in the art of rebuilding from conflict and creating confidence building spaces and measures, right? Now, first of all, I think it's quite clear that despite India's saying that, the United States did not intervene, obviously they did. And the point is that there have been many such episodes in the past. The United States has the leverage, the influence, and the power to do so. You mean leverage on both sides. And they haven't. And then they've done it this time too, like many other times. So we are saying that, while, as say, for instance, Marco Rubio's tweet even said we would be speaking in another country. What we're saying is, look, you invest in a structured dialogue, but create the space for it. I mean, you've got to create space for dialogue. You've got to lower the public temperature, and you're dropping payload in a war of fissile and other ballistic missiles this time. But you're also dropping a daily payload of words that shrink the space for political leaders in both countries. This is important because, as you all know, in parliaments and these are democracies, they're big thriving democracies. They have to respond. Just like you have to respond to sovereign attacks on your sovereignty, you have to respond to verbal attacks on your sovereignty. And daily invective and abuse is not statecraft. It is keeping the region on the boil. So we're saying, don't do that. If you really want to, we're saying the United States is the place where we both are at. We're here to tell our own story. That story is that Pakistan has changed substantially in the last 20 years. We don't want to be, when I was ambassador here 10 years ago, I think we were very clear that we were being defined through conflict and security lenses and of course, Afghanistan. We fought the longest war with you. And we do not want to be defined by conflict or even terrorism. Pakistan has fought the longest ground war against terrorism against anybody in the world. And so we continue to do so today. I think other than Burkina Faso, we have the largest amount of terrorism. It's just not in the headlines because it's not part of the strategic posturing and objectives of the United States linked with Afghanistan, but it's still happening and it keeps recurring. And you will hear from Bilawal Bhutto Zadai that his mother was a victim of, she was martyred by terrorists. We're all defined by those experiences, but we do not wish to continue to be defined by those. We have moved on. What's scary and dangerous is that India has moved right back. It's come full circle and it wants to be defined by an enemy within, which is religious minorities and others. And it wants to be defined now, and wants to define its new politics, identity, hyper-nationalist politics by an enemy without. We're the enemy without. So we're saying, don't do this. We're telling our interlocutors here, you have leverage with both countries. This is not the way to survive the 21st century with borders, with challenges that come across borders, problems without passports, whether it's cyber terrorism, whether it's real terrorism, ground terrorism, or climate change and water stress. These are real issues.
Are we going to have a question? Yeah, sure. In fact, two of these are very similar. So let me just group them together. We've got about 5 minutes, so I'd request that your responses be brief. So the first question is from the audience is, what is Pakistan's next strategy to counter India's new normal in Indian subcontinent, specifically with Pakistan? And why is Pakistan using defensive diplomacy? Instead of defending Pakistan, why not confront India on the grounds of terrorism in Pakistan?
Well, Pakistan has been confronting India on the grounds of terrorism. The recent incidents that have taken place in Balochistan, Pakistan has even called them out. Indians have been called out. You see, that incidents have been a result of financing and even direct involvement by Indians in the problems not the problems, but the incidents, the terrorism incidents in Balochistan and certain parts of KP. I mean, you can recount the recent incidents and you'd be amazed at how, despite the fact that we had this terrorism incident in Pahalgam, they continued to have actions taking place in Balochistan, where a student's bus was attacked, where many other such incidents have taken place. So we have now openly come out and called them out, and also not only that, we regularly submit information on the presence of Indian Indian terrorism in Pakistan to the UN Security Council, to our partners, to the United States, to all the P5 and everyone else. But we want to have an open discussion about it. I think we now are in a situation where we talk openly about it. But we are looking right now not for another fight, but a possibility to work these issues out through dialogue. And that dialogue existed when we had the composite dialogue that was going on between Pakistan and India. We had several sessions of it. You can argue that it did not work. Yes, it did not work at that time, but it needs pressure on India by the international community to work these things out. And the pivot India that was created has now been proven a bit wrong by the situation that was created against Pakistan. So I think what the new normal, or whatever as Sheriman said, the new abnormal is something that we need to clearly, and we are talking about it, clearly talk about it openly and say, what does it mean? Does it mean that if you have a little incident in India, they come and attack Pakistan? That's what Modi is saying. Modi is saying, our new doctrine is that the minute there's an incident in India, we will go and attack Pakistan without information, without credible information, without any international sort of looking at that incident. I think it is something that the international community needs to look at very closely, and the United States also needs to look at closely, because in the United States as well, you have had incidents of Indian terrorism by them trying to kill some American Indians here and in Canada and elsewhere in the world. And we've had several incidents of this type. in Pakistan as well. So it is important that we
last question.
Okay. I think, yeah, I mean, we need to wrap up in just a minute. But it's really a question about the Middle East. What is Pakistan's current posture toward Lebanon and the Palestinian territories? Israel and India have been increasing ties as Pakistan seek to counter this. Very brief interventions. Yes.
Go on.
You know, the biggest, I mean, and it applies to both questions. We present dossier after dossier and after dossier in the United Nations, and you say we are not being offensive. It's not that. We're just not waging war. Is the only definition of offensive is a war? Is it a missile going across, cross-border missile is the only offensive? Is that the new order? Presenting evidence is not offensive enough? And we need a bigger offensive? We are against that. For us, the biggest offensive against destruction is peace. Peace is the biggest offense against destruction and devastation. And that's what we bring to the fore. We are here as our biggest offensive. Dialogue and peace. We're extending our hands. Where's the counterparty? We are saying peace. What are they saying? We are saying dialogue. What are they saying? We're saying don't want to talk to us, talk to our friends. We celebrate, we recognize the leadership that United States and the President of the United States has shown in the way of being a torchbearer of peace and saying, I will mediate. I will basically, because you guys are at daggers drawn, come, we'll talk. India is one of your key friends, and we have been your friends forever. So you have leverage on us. You have leverage on India. Where is India? We're here. This is our offense. Peace, dialogue, because we believe in a world where there are poor people on both sides, not just on our side. There are 500 million poor people living in India, 500 million. What about them? Are they fodder for missiles? What about our poor people? Should we not be focused on development? Just about 5 weeks ago, we were thinking about the critical value chains and investments and development and poverty. And look at the conversation today. Who's imposed this conversation? So I would say we are very offensive. Our offense is dialogue and peace. What is theirs?
Can I quickly just address? I want to speak to the way forward here. And I think here, in terms of tangible steps that our friends here can take, look, if you have leverage, you tell India one simple thing to start with. And they should have learned this from the last encounter with Pakistan, that war is not an option. There are no military solutions to the dispute of held Jammu and Kashmir, disputed Jammu and Kashmir. That is core for us, and it will remain core for us. It's a festering wound which is yielding the kind of unrest that you see. Now, war is not an option, so don't create new facts on the ground like they have in held Kashmir. Number two, respect all treaties, which means you cannot cut off our water or even seek to or threaten to cut off our water. We will see it as an act of war. You do understand what war means. Right now with Pakistan, it is not what they thought. Here, that's what's happening in India. It was not what they did not think Pakistan would be able to, I don't glamorize war. So in any case, respect the treaty, don't cut off the water. We will see it as an act of war. Impress upon the Indians that if both sides talk and maintain, we can look at what is needed on the treaty. Okay. India also is obsessed. Obviously, the conversation is obsessively about the past and terrorist incidents that Pakistan has done this, Pakistan has done. Right? Start building a space where you both can bring proof to the table. Otherwise, you are judge, jury, and executioner. And that's completely unacceptable. It should be unacceptable to the United States of America also. because the role played here by Washington and the Trump administration has been a legacy role, and much more can be done, building on that, of intervening late, but at the threshold where it was needed. So build that in, and these are the 4 points I think we need to work on, if at all South Asia's not made into, because it won't be one country. It will not be one country that will be bombed, and it will be South Asia. It will be certainly 1.5 billion people at risk here. And again, I'm repeating, what will go on in South Asia will not stay in South Asia.
I'd say one last word. Just allow me 30 seconds. Look,
Sure.
we say this with humility.
Yes.
We say this with confidence. If this becomes the Wild West, we've shown that we were the faster gun. So after being the faster gun, we bring peace to you. Have no illusion. You bring war to us, we'll take you on.
Right. So, thank you very much to Minister Malik, Ambassador Rahman, Ms. Janjua.
Thank you.
I think we're now going to transition right
Michael,